Looking back to the 1990 Wimbledon women's draw, an improbable run for Zina Garrison, which included getting past Steffi Graf at #1 seed, eventually falling to Martina Navratilova, but an awesome display of talent and will. And 30 years later, we've got Zina here to talk all about it. Great to see you, Zina. But first and foremost, before we get into that magical run in 1990, I care more about Zina Garrison in 2020. So how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm staying in from COVID, so I'm doing well.
That's a plus. That's a major plus.
Well, so Zina, you were the first Black woman in the Open era to get to a major final. For me, incredible as a trailblazer. I'm curious, though, what changed during those 2 weeks? You kind of talked about, been doing Game.Set.Chat weekly. You talked a little bit about thinking about retirement before Wimbledon. What changed? And how was your mindset going into that 2 week span?
Actually, I was coached by Sherwood Stewart at the time, and that I had won Wimbledon with previously, a couple years before. I had like the worst 2 weeks leading into Wimbledon. I could not hit a ball. Everything that I hit didn't feel good. I was depressed. I mean, to the point where I was just basically thinking about quitting.
And what changed? How did your tennis sort of evolve from that first match, kind of going through the tournament and getting to this stage, this final against Martina?
Well, one of the biggest things, Chanda, is leading in that whole year, there was one particular shot that I kept missing in a tournament, the Australian Open. I played Mary Jo Fernandez, missed the forehand. I think I missed another one against Mary Jo, getting an opportunity to play, and I kept missing it. I actually had a sports therapist that came there with me, and he really helped me a lot. So I really got into visualization. I got into deep breathing and all these things that I had never done before, and I think that kind of relaxed me when I got into the match.
Well, not too many people know about this, but before that final against Martina, Althea Gibson came into the locker room with champagne, ready to pop some bottles after you won your match. What was that experience like, and how did you deal with the nerves? And that certainly had to increase a little bit after that, but how did you deal with the nerves of that moment going into such a big match?
Well, actually, I did not deal with the nerves. On top of having to play Martina, who I lost to 30-something times. And then, I will never forget that. Althea walked in and she was, talking about, this is where I had my champagne when I won and, all these great things. And, and on top of that, it was Althea Gibson coming into the locker room. So for me, everything just escalated. I remember getting ready to walk out. And all of a sudden, it's like I was just like starting to sweat already. I haven't even been on the court yet.
Well, you managed during that match to pull it together enough to make that second set really tough, really competitive. But one of the big matches, the pivotal matches during that 2 week run was the quarterfinals against Monica Seles. You were down match point. You talked about the forehand that you struggled with, that you kept missing. Was that the shot that came up big when you were match point down?
That was the huge shot. And it was weird because in the visualization, I did a lot of things, might sound kind of weird, but when they talk about breathing and going into different colors and everything. And I remember, having that forehand, and I was like saying to myself, like, okay, you got to knock it. You got to knock it down. You got to knock it down. And I remember just nailing it and never looked back after that point. And, playing Monica, you can never say, you've made it, even you come back from a match point. But that match was just so defining for me, just to be able to, stay to what I was trying to do, just stay all the way through with it.
Talking to former world number 4 Zina Garrison about her incredible run in the 1990 Wimbledon all the way to the finals, and also hearing that she was somewhat of a Renaissance woman at the time, well ahead of her time with the breathing and the visualization. I love to hear that stuff. But I've got a question for both of you, and Zina, we'll start with you. Last year we saw Coco Gauff make that improbable run at Wimbledon at 15 years old. Now having this long layoff, just turned 16, how do you think that's going to affect somebody like that, one of the younger players on tour who's experienced some success early on?
Well, I think, I think she's probably trying to do the right things. For actually, it might not. To me, it might not be a bad idea that she's had kind of a year, almost a year layoff, if you look at it that way, where she can really just get in and work on the things that she needs to work in and just really hone in. She's doing a great job of being a leader, which, gives you the opportunity to be a champion off the court. So all of those things are going to come into effect, and I think she'll be okay.
Yeah, I think she will be okay as well. I think it is tougher probably for a young player like Coco who, hasn't really fully gotten going. She was getting her first full year under her belt with some big breakthroughs, tournament wins. And it's tough to kind of stop cold and not know when things are going to fully start back. But I think she's got a good team around her, good support, good family, trying to keep with her routine. And as Zina mentioned, also being a leader during this time, that has to help her confidence and just understanding what's important when she does get back out on court. So it's a good sign, I think, when you consider how mature she has been thus far. But I'm curious, Zina, knowing what you went through, just dealing with pressure and having so many eyes on you, what advice would you give a player like Coco?
Well, the biggest thing is making sure that you stay grounded with the people that were there with you before all of the hype. And that's very important. Your fundamental, the foundation is very important because, it can start to roll very quickly and you don't really, all of a sudden, you don't know who's there for you or who's there just because you're Coco Gauff. So making sure that, the people that are there that were with her before, that they keep her grounded and that know where they want to go into just, because it's going to get tough. It's not going to get any easier.
I love that advice. Always stay with your day ones. I'm curious, Zina, tell me, how did Game.Set.Chat come to fruition and how can we check it out?
Well, Game.Set.Chat and Chanda will tell you, I'm one of those that I'm always really creative with a bunch of stuff, but then I'm sitting there. But I had an idea and about when all of this COVID-19 started, I had an idea basically of how to help the lesser tennis player, lesser pro, I should say, and wanted to give something back. And so I came up with this idea, and I had a really big one. Well, Chanda's very good at bringing me down and just letting me in a good, positive way. And she lays out, Zina, maybe let's try this, maybe do this. And so it really started with helping donate it back to my foundation. And also, so Chanda has basically taken it from there, and she's made it even better than what I thought it would have ever been.
That's awesome. That's fantastic stuff. Well, Zina, we appreciate you taking a few minutes with us and watching back some of that great footage from 1990. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tennis Channel Live. We'll be right back.